Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of five City of Niagara Falls, New York City Council debates. 5 debates over 5 months with 6 candidates for 3 city council seats, all culminating in the upcoming midterm election on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. This collaborative effort is brought to you by local area block clubs, Ruth Cooper, Sheila Zuni, Tom Christie of the Civics Project, the South End Block Club Coalition, and myself, Robert Pascal. It's our hope that creating an environment of frank and open discussion, we will all learn more about the candidates, like what you get when you watch Joe Rogan on YouTube. Each of us here would like to extend a warm welcome to all 6 candidates. And now, your moderator for this evening, Tom Christie.
Wow, it was so professionally done. It was like a hired voice as well. So thanks, Bob. That was it. I'll say the same. It's an honor to talk with you guys tonight, and thanks for doing this. This literally was an idea from a couple people who said, "Why don't we?" And here we are. So that's to me what makes it the best. So 6 people running for 3 seats, Niagara Falls City Council, Niagara Falls, which either is or will be the best city in the United States in short enough time. James Albendonza is on, my top left, Jim Perry below him, Donta Miles in the middle, Colin Ligamari, Tracy Bax, and David Zajac. Again, 6 people running for 3 seats. I don't know if that's unprecedented, actually, and I don't want that to be a question, but that's a lot of openings. So anyway, also, my pet peeve in all of this stuff is that we always generally say things like candidates are idiots. Now, sometimes they are, but they do a lot of work. They put themselves out there. I hear, I don't like this or that candidate. They're running and you're not. So we have to change that paradigm. I think one of our goals is to say thank you for running, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. Thank you for doing this. It's a needed thing. So I also want to always instill that in every show we ever do, is that we need candidates. Thank you for doing this. It's a lot of work. Having said that, we did the first show and the first discussion, and basically 4 categories came out, and we'd like to tackle fiscal issues tonight, whatever that means. You guys had come up with 5 issues, and your words were what we used to pigeonhole fiscal issues for tonight. But I'll get it started with my general question is that government really isn't any more difficult to understand than it's a big not-for-profit. You have to have revenues and you do have expenses. So we'll talk about both tonight, but in my instance, what revenues in the city of Niagara Falls either are adequate, inadequate, should be better? Do we have all the money we need? Are we short of money? Where would we find more money? Like, you're going to run the city and we need money to run a city. So if we're going to do anything that gets suggested, how are you going to pay for it? Or, that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's a question so much as a pet peeve of mine, but, where's the revenue side of the ball in the city of Niagara Falls? And let me just start in no specific order. I don't know who we'll go to next, but I'll start with Jim Perry first. Jim, what's the revenue side of the city of Falls for you?
Well, let me start by saying this. Niagara Falls, let's look at this. I got this week. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the phone book for Niagara Falls from last year to this year. I don't know how well you could see the difference in it.
Wow.
But for 1 year, that's one heck of a difference. That represents the tax base that we have. You cannot continue to tax people and tax people and tax people, because so you have to look at different ways to get revenue. And the bottom line is, I think it's Kelvin Coolidge that said, America's business is business, or something to that effect. And something I look at Niagara Falls and I say, why do we keep giving away some of our best assets? We leased out the golf course, the High Park, the skating rink down at High Park, they call it the Stone House or whatever they call it. We gave away the downtown area. The water board became the water board. It used to be the water department when I first got out of the service and came to Niagara Falls. these are areas that generated revenue for the city, and we gave them away because either we didn't want to be bothered by them, or we didn't want to manage them, or whatever we did with them. But you know, the city, instead of hiring managers and having people that could properly manage it, we gave it away. And you know, I look at places like I bowl, and I go to Las Vegas. They have bowling tournaments down there.
You can bowl on Pine Avenue, Jim. I just want to tell you, you don't have to go
Yeah,
to
but
Vegas.
that's you're getting to my point. Why, you know, we don't go out to attract. We can have bowling tournaments here at the convention center. We can invite the bowling association. All we have to do raise the bedroom tax, or the bed occupancy tax, by a little bit. When people go on vacation, they never complain about, oh geez, the bed tax was up $1 this year. New York City, you know, you can charge $2, $1.50 for bed tax, bed occupancy tax. You never complain. When I go on vacation, I never complain about a bed tax. So, you know, you could raise the bed tax by a little bit, and you could bring in millions of dollars that way, because we have millions of dollars, millions of visitors every year. We have beautiful golf courses here. We can invite the PGA to bring in golf tournaments. These are all ways to bring in revenue to this city without having to raise taxes. You know, and I was asked, hey, what about usage tax or user tax or user fees? That's just another name for tax, because you have a user fee. You could call it whatever you want. A real user fee, you have multiple users to choose from. This user garbage fee, or whatever you want to call it, that's just another tax. That's all it really is. You know,
So Jim, let me ask a kind of a follow-up. So you think it's possible to announce that the city of Niagara Falls is in the tourism business? Because that really is.
Well, that's where I was aiming at, is we need to advertise and attract people in. I haven't seen, every place I go, I've never seen Niagara Falls advertised. I go to Vegas, I don't see it advertised. I forgot who the woman was, maybe one of the other candidates. No, she got up and spoke at one of the city council meetings, saying that, you know, she goes out to the water park in Pennsylvania, there spends $400 a night at a hotel out in some cornfield. You know, spends $400 to bring her grandkids to the water park. You know, this woman's, she has common sense. What happened to common sense in this city? We have a natural resource that attracts people. All we have to do is develop this area, quit giving away our resources, and start developing them ourselves. Pay a person to come in, a professional manager, to do this, and maintain our own, keep our own assets here. That's all we have to do. You don't need to raise taxes. You don't need to do that. And another thing is, you know, a lot of people in the city, we have a system where we hire friends and family, and then we have to hire contractors to do the work that these people should be doing. When I worked for the water board, I was in the process of developing competency tests to hire people, so that they had to pass tests in order to get, you know, need an independent firm away from influences from the city or whatever, to be able to hire people that can do the work, so we don't have to hire contractors to come in and do the work that they should be doing.
Jim, if I could interrupt, let me go to Tracy next. Tracy, I forget your job, but I think your job is talking to people from outside the area and travelers and such. So, you know, don't necessarily go right to Jim's last point, but you know, the first point too about our revenue and tourism, if you'd like to, but you know, where's the revenue going to come from if we do other things?
So one of the things that I through the campaigning and talking to people that I kept hearing is our budget is structurally imbalanced. And I have to be honest, I didn't know what that meant. But I've learned what that meant. And I think it plays a key role in here. And Jim, you know, what's really interesting is I wanted to read the budget, go through the budget, and I started to do that online, and it was very difficult. So I printed it out. And you held up the phone book and you showed what the phone book looked like for our tax base. So here's what our budget looks like printed out, and exactly how and how thick this is, and to go through. And in any budget, there's two levers you have to pull: revenue and expenses. So when I was confused and didn't understand, well, what does structurally imbalanced mean? It was quite simple, and it made a lot of sense. And it's very easy to pick through on the very first page of this budget to see what that is. And it goes right to revenues and expenses. We do not bring in enough revenues in our city to cover the expenses that it costs us to run the city. And for years and years and years, the structural imbalance has been, we've been funding the budget, supplementing that shortfall with casino money. And now, well, what's happened is, the casino well is drying up. And that's becoming a real issue and a real problem. And that's one of the things we have to figure out as council members. What are we going to do? How are we going to be able to write a budget, and how are we going to be able to manage these shortfalls? So we do need new revenue sources coming in, and we need to maximize revenue sources, and we need to become more efficient in our operations. Those are.
But what would anything be like we got where we are where we are. What else would we bring money in for?
So, all right, so let's go to tourism. I heard tourism mentioned, and I don't think we have ever in our city, at least that I can recall, I don't think we've ever declared that as a major industry in our city.
Stunning.
Right? Yeah. So I really believe that there are if we put more resources into our tourism industry, there's multiple different ways and multiple different things we could do to generate more revenues through that industry. And I'll give you two examples just real quickly. The first one is through events and through meetings and conferences and things like that. We have to be able to have facilities that will accommodate more people, bring in more events year round, and that will help to generate more revenues economically into the city, as well as through bed tax and things of that nature, sales tax and things of that nature. There's parking. As we move into the future, we're going to have to set, our city to be ready for infrastructure for electric vehicles and electric cars and things like that. Those are other ways in which we can also add to the parking revenue and generate some new revenues for our city. But the other thing we could do is take a look and see how can we diversify the type of tourism that we're offering. And there's a couple other ways in which the city itself can do that by looking at our community assets and diving in a little deeper. There's things called community-based tourism and voluntourism that I don't think we have tapped into very well in our city. And I think these are offerings that are very easy to develop, very easy to work with other tourism partners, offer out, and people will pay money for those types of experiences to be part of cultural and community-based tourism, immersing themselves in the community to help benefit and generate good things for the community, hands-on work. So those are some areas that I think we have opportunity to up the revenue in the tourism industry.
So some form of grow the pie,
Yeah.
through that stuff. Okay, we'll leave that there for a second. Thank you. Dante Miles, in the middle of my screen at least, but sorry to jump. I don't know how to tell you you're on next, but maybe James, you're on next. So get ready. Dante, sorry, go ahead. What's our revenue situation?
So one of the main things I speak on a lot is that our city, the city of Niagara Falls, let me just put it this way. The falls itself, the wonder of the world, the water that rushes over those cliffs, they don't have a problem bringing people here. The rest of our city has a problem keeping people here. I think that creating a tax base within the rest of our city that's cleaning up the blight, that's fixing the broken window, that's focusing on areas outside of the overinvested state park, that side of that corner of our city that takes 3/4 of our finances that we bring in, whether it be casino funds, whether it be parking, whether it be anything related to the state park, they get the most of it, right? So my thing is how do we begin to, because what happens is the more we drag everybody to that corner, it doesn't matter what we put in that corner. At the end of the day, millions of people are still going to come to watch that water, but when we drag them to that corner and they look across the bridge, they see something better. My ex-wife, she used to work at what used to be the 4 Points, and she expressed to me multiple times how people would cut their stay short, don't even mind paying the fee for the cancellation because they did everything that they could possibly do within the first 1 or 2 days of even being here. So we have to stop being parochial as it pertains to development. Now, development is going to take us cleaning up a lot of the crap in our city. Our city is an eyesore. Let's just call it what it is. And, you know, we have people who have a lot of land that we could develop things on, but these areas, these broken pieces, I talk about the broken pieces a lot of our community. They're not attractive to people who could possibly develop here in the city of Niagara Falls. So if we don't clean up those areas, and we're talking about this main portion of our city, because cutting services and spiking taxes is not sustainable. So if we think that we're going to create revenue by doing that, we're going to fall down the same path that we've been and keep practicing insanity. We just have to find out how do we develop something that's sustaining, and it has to have community buy-in, because anything that we're going to do all year round, because true tourism in Niagara Falls only happens for X amount of months a year. Then winter comes. So we have to have something that the rest of our city, the rest of the community could have a buy-in. And it's not something that I could say, you know, or it's not my idea that's going to be groundbreaking. It has to have something that everyone is willing to take part in all year round.
Well, let me ask, I mean, I guess when I look at the city, you don't own the park, the state does. I know we're all human beings, but they don't, you have absolutely zero say in that park, the most pristine part of the city. Now you also, well, it's not part of the city. It's not part of the city. Now, the other thing is you have zero say over 50 acres in the middle of the city, which we gave to a foreign country, really, the Seneca Nation. I mean, we're the foreign country, they were here first, but whatever, that's not America anymore. It's another place. So you have everything in between. And above and beyond and below. So the most valuable piece of property you can even talk about, where supposedly 9 million people walk by, is the Turtle, which is shuttered and paying zero taxes. So like, yeah, we should expect more out of the park, but we don't own it. Like you do own the Turtle, sort of. It's in your property at least. So those are the kind of things I look at and I say, well, if you need revenue, I don't know, that thing's paying nothing. And it's probably the most valuable piece of property in the entire footprint that you will dominate because you will be the city council. So
if I may be correct or I may not be, I have to look into it, but I believe that Turtle is actually owned by Milstein, who owns
right.
a buttload of other properties around here, and I can go on for another hour about that alone. And these are, and I'm talking 140 some odd acres of property in a prime area that's not considered state park. And that, I guess that's another situation, because, you know, if you're a redevelopment corporation, but you don't develop anything, then you're flying a false advertisement banner. I don't know. I think we have to become more open-minded and when it comes down to developing our city, but we're going to have to, and also being business friendly. I can go there too, because we're not locally, nor for those who are willing to actually spend money in our city. We just haven't been that, along with, you know, tradesmen, things like that. Just getting rid of a lot of the red tape, the loops and the hoops that we make everybody jump through. You know, yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. So you guys know far more than I'll ever know about the city and the city government. So I ask everything out of ignorance. But you know, so Tracy mentioned something called volunteerism or voluntourism, and I love that. I've wanted to do that. Go build the walk, the trails through the Continental Divide, which will never be finished in our lifetimes. You know, I'm big on that. But we have to eat tomorrow is my mentality now. What are we going to do tomorrow? And I'm not knocking that, Tracy, by any stretch. So like if we have to raise revenue on January 1st, when you take office, when you're sworn in, like what's some of the emergency we're going to do? Because voluntourism might take more than a year. So, you know, what are we going to eat on starting January 2nd. So anyway, I editorialize and I talk too much. James, back to the original question. Ignore all that.
What was
What
that
about
original question again?
I don't know. Jim Perry doesn't have to love. It was the original.
It was, I
unsolvable
believe it
problem.
was sources of revenue, I think. And, you know, Tracy and Dante and Jim, you all had great ideas. Obviously, we're all, you know, going through this. You know, when I listen to it, and I hear, you know, Tracy talked about the tourism thing with the event. What'd you just call it? The voluntourism that you were just talking
Voluntourism.
about?
Yeah.
I love that. It reminds me of, you know, the Airbnb has the Airbnb experience where the person can stay in a short-term rental and they can also, you know, go down and hire a person to go take a walk through the gorge. Brings money into our, you know, our local economy. You know, the things like, you know, festivals. You know, we have Dante was talking about, you know, keeping people here outside of the tourist season. Think back to like, you know, 1991. We had over 1 million people were here for the Festival of Lights, and that was in the winter time. So ideas like that have gone by the wayside. We have nothing like that anymore. So we have festivals and events that can be created. We have, you know, attractions that can be created. Just things like museums. Tracy, again, a great idea with the, you know, the meeting hubs and the conventions. Why is Niagara Falls? We're a hub between Rochester, Buffalo, Toronto. We're supposed to be this hub. Our comprehensive plan talks about this hub and how important it is. And yet, I don't see conventions out here. We should be having conventions like you see in Vegas. There should be people here every day, all the time, having conventions, talking about stuff, doing business, creating business and creating relationships. And, you know, those things are important. You know, I also put on, I made a short mental list of, you know, the kinds of things that can create revenue. We need to do things like Dante was saying, fight the land speculators. We need to have local government that's willing to step up and create legislation and policy that is going to, you know, discourage them from doing what they're doing right now. How that works, I don't really know the mechanics of it yet, but I'm sure there's things that we can all talk about and come up with. I also think that, I know, Tom, you mentioned about, you know, the state owns that land. And that is true. But, you know, as far as the local government goes here, we should be fighting the state for a better share of profits. We should be fighting the state when they try to cut us out of negotiations. And we should be fighting them when they try to dictate to us what's going to happen in our own backyard, because it does affect us. They may own it, but it does affect us. If my neighbor next door wants to put in, you know, a bar into his, you know, front yard and have 1,000 people come in there, that's going to affect me. I should have a say in that. I should be allowed to, like, you know, take part in the discussions for that. Right now, the state just, you know, treats us, as I said before, like we're just, the city itself is just a big parking lot. And I have always said, I think that if they could just pave us over, they would love that. But one final element to all this is enforcement. Enforcement is not only a good source of additional revenue, it's the key to cleaning up our city, which is going to lead to, you know, more people wanting to come here, more people wanting to live here and stay here, just all around making it a better place, a cleaner place, a place like when you go to Niagara on the Lake or Lewiston. You would never, you walk into some of the neighborhoods around here, Lewiston would not tolerate that kind of stuff for even a second.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
enforcement can be a good avenue for revenue as well.
Thank you. And those are all very well thought out and smart positions. And again, you're as far smarter than I'll ever be on Niagara Falls. But I would also just then say, why do you, it isn't rocket science. And why do you think none of this has happened? I mean, you didn't say anything that nobody's thought of before either. I love everything you said, but I mean, why hasn't it?
I can't speak to what's in other people's minds and to why it hasn't happened. I don't know if it's because they're too worried about being reelected, or they're in the pockets of someone else, or if we talk about cronyism and nepotism, we talk about people who, you know, not everyone is a professional, not everyone has a good work ethic. I can't speak to the reasons why the humans that run our government now and in the past haven't made what you just said, not rocket science decisions. I mean, you know, you can't speak to that. I know what I would do. I've spoken to some of the other candidates. I know what they would do. And, you know, you just have to kind of, I think, educating our elected officials, giving them the proper training, letting them know what they can and can't do, making sure that they just have a full understanding of what their job is and what they're like capable of doing. I mean, I watch our council right now, and they do a small percentage of what they actually have the power to do, and it's disappointing. So I like I said, I can't really speak to the mindset of your question. It's very disappointing. I've lived here all my life, and I've watched just bad decision after bad decision. It's almost like I'm bad with sayings, but take victory out of the jaws of whatever,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm super bad with sayings. But yeah, so I can't really answer that question. I can just say for the future, we need to come together. We need to be smart. We need to be professional, logical, look at facts and data, and we need to come up with some good plans. This is not going to get fixed overnight. I know you were talking about, first day we get into the job, what do we do to make money? We may not have an answer for that. We may not have a solution. Some of the stuff that we have to come up with might not really hit hard until 10 years, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's, we didn't get here overnight. This has been going on for decades. It's going to take decades to turn us around. So
Thank you. I'm going to go to Colin next and then David, but I'll just say part of the frustration of me, and it's all about me anyway, is that, why can't it start day one? I mean, how much time do you need to be a councilman? Not you, but you get in and you spend 4 years and then 8 years and then 12 years. And that person who's been here for 12 years says, God, we just need more time. I'm like, I don't know. I got to eat tomorrow. So that's not about you. I'm sorry. Colin, what are we going to do about revenue? Well, I don't want a bowling convention in Vegas. James and Jim have both mentioned Vegas conventions, but
I've never been to Vegas, so I'm not sure how they do it out there. But I think, okay, the question was, about revenue. Do we have enough revenue? Do we have more than enough revenue? Okay, well, no, we don't have enough revenue. That's why the city looks the way it does. Cities that look like ours obviously are either completely and totally dysfunctional, or they don't have the revenue to keep up. The city's failing, so obviously we need more money. And I don't know if it's that we don't have the money, or that we're not receiving what I feel would be our fair share of the money that we deserve. So, we're being held hostage by special interest groups and, like they've said, land speculators. They've never helped us. They're never going to help us. So, the turtle was brought up. I read that the turtle is listed at like $4 million or something for sale. It's time to pay taxes on $4 million if you own the turtle. So I'd like to start there yesterday. And regarding some of the other the state, right? I'm sorry, but we host that cash cow that you're paying the Eastern Seaboard with, and we want our money. We need it.
yeah.
I mean, as far as revenue, what do we have? We have some parking revenue. That's nice. It's a little bit here and there. I mean, that was a good change. Okay. I'd like to see some revenue from dog licenses, and I would love it if code enforcement would write some damn tickets and have them paid. That would be great. I'd love that. It would be nice if we could, write some tickets when your grass is, 4 feet high. I used to live in Orlando, Florida for a number of years. And if my grass got 1 inch over like 5 inches or something, I got hit with $100 ticket that I had to pay. I'm looking at thousands and thousands of dollars in long grass tickets. And it helps our curb appeal too. Revenue, nobody wants to come here to help with revenue if we look the way we look. We got to clean ourselves up.
James brought up Niagara on the Lake, and we don't need to compare ourselves to anywhere else, but when you go there, it's almost a rule that it's going to look beautiful. Everybody's like a gardener, and I don't know how they got that way, and I don't want to be like them, but it just is. And do you see any disconnect here where we give $8 million to create 14 bartending jobs, and I'm a bartender, so I love bartending, when we can't cut the lawn? Like, we don't have money to cut the lawn. That's what I hear, but we don't cut the lawn at many places.
We have to start where we are. I love big ideas. I've never been to Vegas, but I'm sure I would love Vegas. It sounds fabulous, but here's where we are. So how do we start from where we are and try to get to where Vegas is, or hell, even where Lewiston is, right? If we take a small page out of the Lewiston playbook, we're not talking about giant Ferris wheels and arenas. We're talking about art festivals on a sidewalk that our local people can participate in and buy into and sell to, the only industry that comes here, and that's our tourists.
All right. Well, thank you. Before I go to David, I'll just editorialize and say another thing that I know you all better disagree with is that I've heard the excuse for a long time. We'd love to help Niagara Falls, but they're not smart enough to help themselves. And that is disgusting. It's not true, but it's a perpetuation like candidates are idiots. It's what they say to not give you your fair share, whoever they is, right? We have to end that too. Anyway, David, love to give you that question after that rant, but the city revenue and expenses and Tracy pointed out, which, Jesus, I can't even believe it, that it appears the city council passed a budget which was out of balance. So how are we going to get it balanced, or how are we going to get revenue? Welcome. Thanks for doing this.
No, thanks for having me. And not in regards to the question at hand, but just to touch on a point that you made, Mr. Christie, about, why can't you do it day one once, hopefully myself and two of these other candidates are elected on January 1st. I don't have the exact information in front of me, but I know the council did pass a resolution to create I'll call it a training program for incoming council members to try to flatten the curve a little bit of the learning curve. And I'm sure several of us have spoken with Mr. Spanbauer, John Spanbauer, current council member. He's a very intelligent man, but this was actually one of the resolutions that he was, proud of. And coming from him, it says a lot that he had a learning curve, especially from his background when he got into city government. So that's just a little tidbit. I'm sorry I don't have the specific information. This kind of came up from your point. But back on the revenue aspect, I think our no-brainer revenue is, like everyone else said, tourism. Dante hinted on it. Tourism is our biggest time, maybe 4 months out of the year, weather depending. I think we need to work more to get, things here that are not just 4 years or 4 months out of the year, that can be done all year long. Obviously, like Mr. Perry said, golf courses, kind of a rock and a hard place there. I've never snow golfed. I can't imagine it's easy. A bowling tournament, that would be great. I wish we had a building somewhere we could put it, like I've been to the tournament Mr. Perry talked about. But tourism is a thing that the city officials need to work on, drawing people out of the park. Several of the other candidates have said it. The state cares about keeping the people in the park. That's their cash cow. If they come out into the city and they dabble, great. If not, it's not the state's concern. They get all their revenue from down there. Again, like the other candidates said, I wish we got more of it, but I think push comes to shove, I don't see the state giving into us in that aspect. And besides tourism, I think supporting our local businesses that are here now and trying to attract new businesses to come is another big thing for revenue. Especially local businesses. My family's, raised off the back of local business. I think it's important to support those that support our communities and, they're the light of hope in those individual communities that they are, whether it's a funeral home or a restaurant or a convenience store or anything like that. I think we need to work to support those individuals. And if we can work to draw the tourists out of the park, those businesses will benefit. Hopefully not the funeral business, but the other businesses will benefit. And then it'll be to the city, all the way from bed tax to the hotels, all the way from hopefully shopping. If we can get some shopping areas downtown, more restaurants. I mean, it really is a pot. If they were to come out of the state park, anything from I know it's a delicious soul food place downtown. There's a Jamaican restaurant. There's Asian cuisine. There's a Lebanese restaurant in the city market. Polish food, Italian food, American food. I mean, it really is a melting pot. And we just need the city leadership to try to pull the people out of the park to come experience that.
Yeah. Hey, you cut out a couple times, and you know what? We'll edit this when we repost it, where every time you pause, we'll have your voice say, "I'm voting for Donta Miles," or "I'm voting for Jim." You pause 3 times, and we'll have you vote for someone else each time. So we'll take care of that later. But I mean, great point. But let me just follow up on: does anyone believe that the state wants you to even enter the city? I know they say that, but they just reconstructed the parkway to go only into the park and then get you the hell out. Does the casino ever want you to walk outside their building into a pizzeria? I Those are just myths, aren't they? I don't believe that anymore. The state wants you to go into that park in Delaware North to feed you a piece of pizza, not Donatello's. I don't know. I just believe that. You think differently?
No, I mean, I would say you're correct, but that's where we need, I know we touched on it in the first Zoom meeting, that's where we need strong city leadership. And again, 60% of our city council is going to be brand new individuals that never held public office from right here on the screen. And we need to have those that are willing to work tirelessly and endlessly with the fellow city council members, the mayor, our state and federal representatives need to tell the state that we need help drawing them out. But in the end, it's our responsibility. So however any one of us think we can do that, I think it's better to be a collaborative effort, because there's something I may think is a good idea that James doesn't, or Mr. Perry doesn't, or Colin doesn't, or Dante doesn't, or Tracy doesn't, or maybe even you don't, Mr. Christie. But at the same time, we can come to a meeting point and say, hey, you know what? Your idea is good. My idea needs some work. Let's put them together and see if we can make a collaborative effort to get those people out of the park and safely into our city.
Thank you. That's rational. And I'm coming from the crazy guy on Network, the movie, where I can't take it anymore. So I don't want collaboration and friendliness anymore. I want you to steamroll over whatever it takes to make money. That's just me. But it's all about me. I told you that. I don't want to go back and forth, and I've got another question. But Jim, you wanted to say something there. You can raise your hand if you have a question here. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay.
I know your hand's up.
What I wanted to say was, you had specifically mentioned, you kept pounding away, day one, what you want to do. What you want to do, day one, check your bill, check the bills, whoever gets in there, see if you could look at the billing that they do. Because I know when I was there are companies that double bill, that pad the bills. You see companies that, you're gonna get a bill to do something, and then they're gonna pile on those bills. They're gonna charge you hundreds of dollars over what the cost of the bill was. See who those companies are, because there are companies that are just sucking the life out of this city.
Jim,
I'm not going to go into what.
Why would you pay one more dollar until the turtle paid $1? Why? Why? I don't understand. It's sitting there and it's not paying anything.
There are companies that are getting rich, just like there are defense contractors doing the same thing. There are companies that are just sucking the life out of this city. And, enforcement, code enforcement, instead of going around looking to ticket people who are building a fence around there, we have bushes and trees that people aren't trimming that are blocking views on corners that, those are the people you need to go after, like Tracy, Colin, I think it was Colin or Tracy, whoever it was that said that. But you know what? That's a great idea. I love that. And the pork barrel spending. We killed 2 projects at the water board that was going to cost millions of dollars. While I was there, they were going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars, that we killed them, that had no sense at all to move forward on, but yet they would have moved forward. Now I know that they're going to start another project that there's no reason at all to move forward on that project, but there's no one there to stop it now. So,
All right.
But anyways.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I want to follow up on something what Tracy said. And Tracy, I'll ask you first. Is one of your lists, not yours, but everybody's list of important fiscal issues is it fiscal crisis time? Anything from, should we have a control board? Should we call in the state comptroller? I think the state comptroller has services they offer to local governments that aren't crisis. They're just advice. Are we to that? I mean, you raised the point that the budget starts out of balance, or it's hard to raise new revenue. Expenses are never going to go down. Do we need help from the outside, or?
Quite possibly. And I think a few years ago, there was some help with a comprehensive review of the finances that was completed, and a report was provided. And in that report, also some ideas and suggestions were provided on how to address just that. How do you balance your budget? So yeah, so that's quite possible, but it's also, I think, important to go back and take a look at that and see, well, what haven't we done and what might be there that's still relevant today? So, I'll go back to something I said earlier in my professional role. It's, working with budgets is something that we do daily. And I said we had, revenues and expenses, and we haven't really talked much about that. But when it comes to balancing a budget, there's a lot you can do with expenses. And looking at ways to more efficiently run the operations is something I do think we can do from day one. I mean, the number one job of the city council is the budget. That is what we have power over. That is our role. That is our job. And those are things that we can take a look at and work with the city leaders and administration on and ask questions about. And I would ask a ton of questions about that. Everything from, are there duplications of services, and are there duplications of different departments doing the same thing? Can we coordinate? Can we consolidate? Can we put out more RFPs to drive the prices down on things? What are we doing? Because let's face it, with the revenues, yes, we have to find ways to raise revenues, but expenses are only going to go up, and they're going to go up somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 5 to 6 to 7% every single year. That's just, that's just a normal thing. So we have to figure out, how do we drive expenses down as they're going up, if that makes any sense. But there are operational efficiencies and ways to approach that strategically to drive your costs down at the same time while they're going up. And that is something we can do on day one.
If the council is chiefly the fiscal watchdog, one of the first things the mayor did was hire a PR person at 50 grand. So was there a corresponding cut of 50 grand, or did they just add 50 grand? Do we just talk about being fiscal watchdogs, or do we say, I'm not going to pay that person? I mean, it's not about that person, but I don't know why the mayor isn't a spokesperson for himself. If you're in a fiscal crisis, which maybe we are, we can't afford 50,000. We can't afford 10 more dollars. So anyway,
right. Every expenditure has to have an ROI, right? It has to have a return on that investment. And that's what I believe we need to look at as we're approving those expenditures as a council member.
Yeah. James, same question. Are we in a fiscal crisis? Do we have to call on the comptroller? Should we declare bankruptcy? Should we, where does that go? Are we in that shape? Or are we just a little,
I can't speak to the having a control board come in yet. I'd like to learn more about that. But, a lot of what we're talking about here as candidates, when we try to find information about things, we have trouble, because one of the items that we had talked about in our last discussion was transparency and fiscal transparency. And what Tracy's talking about, and what everyone's talking about, has to do with, how as a person coming in on day one, or whether we've been there for 4 years, it's obfuscated. It's not transparent what is happening in the background. Tracy, you held up the phone book sized budget. That's a ridiculous budget. It's a very hard thing to understand when there are just pages upon pages of just numbers. I wanted to make a note here about our software, our technology. We have obsolete technology in our city hall, and our comptroller is currently using that obsolete software. There's the city has or not the city, the state has what do they call the 6 municipal categories. And I don't want to get into it too much because it even puts me to sleep, but basically we don't follow them. So what's happening is, we're using a system that doesn't follow the New York State reporting standards, using those municipal reporting categories. So basically it's like, we don't understand, since we don't have standard categories, the true cost of services are hard to calculate. And Tracy, you were just talking about this, about making things more efficient. And Jim, doubling your your services. What if we got one guy over here and one guy over here? They're both doing the same thing and we're paying them both. When you try to calculate that, unless you're a professional that works in the controller's office, you're not going to know, because those expenses are spread out over different departments, different subcategories, and sometimes different names altogether. It's like trying to determine how much you spend per year on milk for your family. You might have like milk marked down under beverages, and elsewhere it's under baking supplies, and further it's maybe like under general groceries. When things get disorganized and inefficient that way, we start to make mistakes because we're not seeing it. And put that on top of it's already hard to read. It's this thick, pages and pages of numbers, and people who aren't trained as accountants, you're getting yourself into some trouble. And on top of that, add to that the public doesn't know what's happening either, because it's very difficult to understand and read those numbers. They don't understand what's happening. The council doesn't truly understand what's happening. And all of a sudden we're overspending, and we don't know what's going on. We're lost. I mean, none of us run our house that way. I mean, if you know you're only going to make $1,000 in a month, you're not going to go out and spend $3,000, and 2 of those things are to make 2 car payments by accident for a car you don't even have. I mean, I know I'm going off topic there, but the idea being, you know, we have to be smart with what we do, and currently we are not. We have technology that is old. Like I said, we have software that is old. It doesn't fit what the state wants to do, and you know, they come in and they give us advice. They give us reports. They say, you know, you need to do this and you need to do that. And, you know, past administration has straight up just ignored it. And, you know, like it's been said 1,000 times already today, we are where we are. What do we do now? So I'm kind of meandering on, sorry.
No, that was all great stuff, but it's not just us or us here or you guys, but, you know, Investigative Post, love me some Investigative Post on a daily basis, had a story this morning that the Buffalo Sewer Authority guy isn't returning phone calls, right? And that is endemic of every level of government today. So I can't call up the budget director and ask a question because they don't return phone calls. Now, I can't call the mayor because he doesn't return phone calls. So you have to call the PR person who might ask the mayor, who might ask the budget director. If we don't discuss government or civics, we can't learn about government and civics. So far beyond whether we're using old software, people won't talk. And then I think it's, you know, a hot button issue that we aren't going to go into because it's not really fiscal, but I think that the short-term rental people had some issues in the last couple of months and they asked for some data. It's been a year. They weren't told right, wrong, or indifferent. They weren't given anything. I mean, this is not acceptable.
To answer that one, that was actually me who put the FOIL request in over a year ago for information. It still hasn't been returned. But let me talk a little bit more about, you know, fiscal transparency doesn't just apply to the public. You know, it applies to our government. You know, according to our city charter, the city council has the right to know about all financial matters, and they have the right to investigate almost all aspects of our government. So, you know, we don't see them currently using those powers to investigate on their own, but they do in fact have the ability to demand information. They choose to put themselves in the dark, unlike the public who are like forced into the dark. So, you know, talk about day one things. As a city council member, as a city council group, we have the right to know what is being spent. We have the right to actually subpoena department heads and ask them, hey, why are you doing this the way you're doing it? Who told you to do it this way? Is it a professional thing? Is there, you know, whatever? We have that right to do that. And that's a power that should be used by the city council to keep our own government in check. We have to keep our government in check.
Right.
The government is here for the people. And right now it doesn't feel that way. Right now it feels like we're just getting kind of pulled along in whatever direction they feel like it. And they don't have to talk to us. They don't have to meet with us. No press conferences, no information, FOIL requests that aren't answered. It just goes on and on the list.
Yep.
So I'll digress so other people can talk.
Thank you. I didn't know you filed that FOIL. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thrown that question at you because that looks like I knew what I was doing, which I never know what I'm doing. So anyway, you didn't get information for a year. You specifically, that's just not even acceptable. We can't make any progress that way. Anyway, Dante, sorry. I'll go Dante, I don't know, David, and then Colin, we'll do it that way. But Dante, back to, are we at fiscal crisis time? Do we declare bankruptcy? Do we ask the state for some help? The state comptroller, not the state. You know, anyway, go back to the original question, sorry.
Yeah, I think we have a culture. I've used that word before.
We
And
do have a culture. No, it's a very important word. We do.
Yeah. And we have gotten so comfortable with backwards budgeting. I like to use that because we've treated our city like an irresponsible person with a credit card. We spend, and then we look at what we have. We say, oh, well, why? I'm in $10 million worth of debt now.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, okay, before we vote on these contracts or before we do X, Y, and Z, we need to see what we're working with. I mean, to me, that's called common sense. You just practice common sense and say, I have this amount of money. This is how much money we bring in. We can't use a casino funding because that has an expiration date on it. Let's see what we bring in, period, throughout the year. And then we can find, so I think the culture has to change. You know what I mean? How we run our local government, how we spend, you know what I mean? And then we do have to have people who and hold people accountable even in that level. And I love the idea even concerning launching investigations, being that we would have that type of power, because at the end of the day, what that shows is I have nothing to hide. If there's wrongdoings and things that's going on financially, fiscally within our local government, that needs to be taken, because it ends up being on the back of all of us, the residents. Because that's always first. That should be first priority, period. From all of us, everyone that's running, first priority needs to be the residents of Niagara Falls. Yes, I'm bankruptcy. Change our culture and how we treat our city and how we run our city. Yes, absolutely. And it's going to be uncomfortable for some, but at the end of the day, it's something that has to be done.
We go back to the grass, because the grass is the snow in the winter and not being plowed. So, you know, I don't think anyone is holding a gun to the head of all the people in Niagara on the Lake to keep their property beautiful. It's just a cultural thing. They just do, you know? And is there anything you can tell me to make me believe we can't cut the lawn at all these vacant properties and make it look pretty? Are we bankrupt? Why can't those lawns get cut? Why?
I'm so glad that you landed on me with that, because a couple of years ago I was on the weed whacking mob. But let me tell you about something about this whole grass situation. To me, there's a level of contradiction when it comes down to, let's say, our certain union outfits, because what we ran into, and a problem that we ran into, we did it twice, 2 summers, is we got fight from the union saying that, oh, they're taking jobs away. And my problem was, okay, well, it's July going into August and there's 6 feet of grass and we're cutting it, and you're saying we're taking away work from you. Grass isn't a one-shot deal. Like, this is something that's going to be done repetitive. If you're doing it right, you're supposed to cut your grass at least once a week or once a week and a half, whatever the case is. So what the fight that and the pushback we kept getting, and we're just community members. I had nothing to, you know what I mean? We seen posts on Facebook, people showing these grassy areas. So we said, you know what, let's just roll up our sleeves and go do it ourselves. We got pushed back from the union, but yet and still, so they were saying you're taking our jobs, but then in the same token, they would say they were understaffed. That's why they can't. So you're going to either be one or the other. And that was my issue. That's where I say the contradiction as far as grass is concerned, because my thing is if you're understaffed and you need help, why are you complaining when someone is actually doing it?
Okay. Okay, so I see these cleanup efforts and volunteers, and they're fantastic. But I don't know, that's a paid service. Like, I want the city to do it. So if the city's about $100 million budget ballpark, are you telling me, not you, but are we making the argument that, well, for 101 million, we could pay those union wages? It's just a money equation there. Like, okay, I don't want you to volunteer. I want the people to do it. And if we have to pay them, pay them. But is it a money thing that we can't cut that lawn when we gave $8 million for 14 bartending jobs, or $46 million for a new, welcome center that's exactly the same footprint as the old welcome center? I mean, it doesn't seem fiscal to me.
Well, like I said last time, that whole welcome center and especially that $8 million for 14 bartending jobs is actually beyond bonkers to me.
But my grass isn't cut. My grass isn't cut.
Right. Hold on. Let me tell you, one of the main reasons why I even started going, because I'll be the first to raise my hand, that I haven't always been in City Hall and pounding podiums and all that stuff. My first reason for coming was I was so pissed at the fact of I missed 2 weeks here in my home that I own, 2 weeks of garbage being picked up because my snow, they never dropped a plow on my street and our cars were parked like this. And I'm quite sure once the modern road by, they were like, they couldn't even get, cars barely could make it through. So yes, these services, they have been piss poor. I mean, and that's something we have to address. Is it and if it is the money, like, we can't be, but again, the state, they're dropping $46,000 on a welcome center that we don't need. People are going to continuously come here every year. You know what I'm saying? So that's a waste of money. But you know what has to happen? We have to have people that are willing to fight that. Me in my head, and maybe I'm just crazy, but I'm okay with packing a weekend bag and taking a trip to Albany to make that fight. You know what I mean? As an elected official, we have to have people that are willing to do something that's outside of the norm. You know what I mean? Practicing insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different. That you can't fall through the same patterns and think something different is going to come about.
Well, again, thank you unconditionally. And let me apologize to everybody. With 6 people, I mean, you just have to sit and it's hard to get around to everybody every few minutes. So thank you for your patience for doing this. But you shouldn't have to pack a bag and go to Albany. You have the 4th highest ranked statewide official representing Niagara Falls in the state Senate. Bob Ortt is the minority leader of the state Senate. I don't know, my lawn's not cut. I mean, you shouldn't have to pack a bag and you shouldn't have to cut it. That's all I'm saying. It seems like a fiscal equation. Pay the union wage. My grass isn't cut. It's cut in Niagara-on-the-Lake, although I haven't seen that in 2 years because of COVID. I don't know. These are my frustrations as you're running a city now. You're in charge. So anyway, thank you, Dante. I appreciate it a lot. I don't know if I went to David next or Colin, but let's go to David next. I'm sorry. David, back to the original question that I get so far afield from. But is it fiscal bankruptcy time or calling the state comptroller for help or other people, or can you do it yourself?
I think there definitely is a fiscal crisis that the Falls is facing. It's nothing that's happened overnight, much like the topics we spoke about in our last Zoom. I'm sure we're going to speak about in this Zoom and future Zooms. It's been happening over the past several years. I believe Tracy touched on it earlier. The city got about $250 million from the casino compact. And I think that's where the previous administration, and I will say the council, because everyone's sitting down, the council also has input on the budget and gets to see the budget, is to blame for using that money to kind of plug and play where the structural deficit was almost every year. If it went up, if it went down, they always just use casino money to kind of throw money at it, hope it goes away. Well, they threw money at it, and now we're broke. So that's a problem. And, the casino funds, the way I interpreted it was supposed to be used to invest in economic development for our city. Wasn't meant to solve it, just to invest in it. There was a meeting last Thursday at Abbott Elementary, and several speakers, and I believe even the MC Ezra Scott brought it up about entrepreneurs in the area that are having a tough time either with funding or red tape or anything like that. And it just left me wondering, and I had my fiance with me, and we were kind of talking on the way home, and it left me wondering, what if we had some of that $250 million here still? Could we help some of those entrepreneurs, even just in the room that were there on Thursday, but all the ones that are throughout the city? Help them get into and build our economy, help them grow our tax base. Maybe they have a new idea for a business, but the city doesn't have the money to be able to do that because it was spent for the structural deficit. The city is now going to get the American Rescue Plan money. Sounds great, $57 million. But first thing that has to be addressed with it is COVID costs. And I believe it was brought up at the city council meetings that the city hasn't incurred that much debt from COVID, but there are guidelines to what that money can be spent on. So it's not like they can just give it out to whoever and whatever. It has to meet the guidelines the federal government set down for it. And by no means is that the solvent to our problem. It's more, to me, it's more of a lifeline. A flash in the pan money that we have to spend by, I believe it's 2026. Otherwise, it's taken back from us. And then, touching on things about the state controller and the comprehensive review report that was done in 2017. I believe the controllers was in 2015. There's, several overlapping suggestions that they've made to the city. One of them was the garbage fee, which we now have. But there were several overlapping ideas that they offered to the city that I think on day one, again, hopefully myself and two of the other individuals on this call are able to sit down with the senior city council members and the mayor and administration and say, smarter people than us have mentioned the same thing 2 years apart and said the same issues are facing our city. Well, now we're at the tipping point. So I think we need to implement some of the things that they mentioned in those reports, even if it's not to the full degree, it's to some degree, just to try to get the city a little more fiscally responsible and away from this, looking for lifelines and depending on casino revenue that, we're hoping to come back.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let that cogent answer stand and not, go bonkers like I usually do. So that was some version of, yeah, let's follow up with the comptroller on the suggestions he made that we never implemented. Yeah. Okay. I'll let that sit without going nuts. Thank you. Colin and then Jim. Colin, are we at a tipping point fiscally in the city? Can we bail ourselves out? Do we need help? Where are we?
Yes, and probably.
Don't know what I said. Yes.
So, we're definitely in a financial crisis, and I don't think it was an accident that, this is where we are. I mean, we were industry, but industry broke up with us, and like a number of years ago, and we've just been kind of pining for industry to come back. Like, she's not coming back. She's moved on, right?
Wow, it sounds like you've been dumped a few times, man. That hurt. I felt your pain there.
Well, it's true. Like, she left us. She's gone, baby. She ain't coming back.
Yeah.
So, we need to figure out who we are now and what direction we decide to go in, and can we be trusted with what little money we have, and how do we make more, right? So yes, we're absolutely in crisis territory. Temporary money does not fill all holes, and we have been filling holes with temporary money for as long as we've had a casino, and now as long as we have COVID, we're looking to it appears that this will happen again. We'll be using temporary money to patch and band-aid our problems, and that's not what we need to be doing. We need to put a focus, I think, back on small businesses. David mentioned that he was at Abbott the other day, and I did hear mention that the COVID money, it would be nice if we could use it to help support woman-owned businesses. I'm a woman-owned business, and it is so hard to do business here that I ran for public office. It's horribly difficult to get started, get going, get the answers that you need, get the checklists, and have the support of your city to get your business off the ground and be and work in compliance with the city. It's very confusing. Everything is vague. No one, you got to ask 10 different people. So the financial crisis is part of the overall crisis, right? Like, we need it. No one's coming here to start a business because it's too hard. I used to do my work out in Buffalo, and everyone in Buffalo was like, we're not coming to Niagara Falls. It would be great. It's cheap to buy property and to get started and whatever, but it's too difficult. And I didn't understand what they meant until, well, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered the financial crisis question. Is it time for a control board? Maybe we should look at all options, absolutely, and figure out how to move forward with any sort of dignity.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. Let me go right to Jim, because we're gonna run out of time no matter what. But Jim, you were in Vietnam, right?
Yeah. No, actually, I was in the service during Vietnam, but they sent me somewhere else. But but anyways, now listen. The financial crisis that we are in, we caused ourselves, and it comes from a lot of different sources, and I can tell you that because I have been on the inside. They and shall we call for help? Well, I don't have a lot of faith in the state government any more than I have in the city government. I'll tell you, being very honest with you. I called for a couple of investigations while I was at the water board, and they were all unduly influenced by different political groups. And I'm not saying all the political groups are corrupt, not by any long shot. We have some very hardworking and honest people, but what we need to do is, we know what we need to do, but they're hard choices to make. And we need an honest assessment. We need to move forward. And while I was in negotiations with the USW came to the table along with the other unions, and they said, we'll help you. We'll work with you. We'll come with you. And it wasn't, it wasn't them that had the problem. There were other people that didn't want to work. They wanted their own way. Everybody has their own agenda. That's where the crisis comes. The crisis doesn't, the city, like I said, the city, we have too many different agendas going on. And that's where the financial crisis comes. This one wants this one wants that. We need to come together as a group and focus on what we really need, not what we want, but what we need as a city, what we need as a people here, and work together toward that end.
Let me interrupt because I have to. Can you get elected saying such things, right? Or do you have to
I'm
promise?
being honest.
Or do you have to promise? Right. So, and if we got ourselves here, we can get ourselves out, obviously, but only with some tough tonic, as you're saying. Are we ready for tough tonic, or can you get elected selling, chemotherapy treatment? I don't know.
You know what? The voters are going to tell me.
Good answer. Good answer. All right. Well, thank you. I want to get to one more question. Let me go right to Colin because Colin raised it. Colin, let's talk about the overall question being a poor business climate, because I don't know what is poor or what is good. Really, it's what works and what doesn't, I guess. But we had a guy that rents bikes, Galen Bailey. He's got a kiosk on the edge of the park. He's got a business on 3rd Street. And he was on the show, the podcast Sunday Civics. And he explained to us several times of how difficult it is to run a business in the tourism capital of the world in this city. People came to him and said, you need a permit, and there wasn't a permit that existed. Like, he went down to buy the permit and it didn't exist. And they said, oh, sorry. I mean, just horrible, amazing stories that you can't believe. Now, through persistence, he's there. A lesser person would have left. I'd have left for sure. So when we talk about Niagara Falls might have a poor business climate, what do we mean? Do we, and what do we mean? Colin, sorry, it's a tough question. Oh, and she left. No, where did she go? Colin, no. Well, I hope that was electrical and not personal. But maybe I'll go to you, Dante, while you're here, and we'll go back to Colin when she comes back. But what does poor business climate mean? Like, when we were talking, like, I definitely see that the state sends all the traffic into the park, and then it leaves the park and leaves the city, and the casino does that for sure. So you can have the best restaurant in the world on Pine Avenue or somewhere else. No one's going to it except, us locals or something, if we know about it. So anyway, what is a poor business climate, and do we have it?
Well, one thing about it, we tax the crap out of our local businesses. I've learned that over the past 5 or 6 years of just listening. We don't really treat, again, because we are willing to allow foot traffic to be taken away from our local businesses. What our local government hasn't understood for some time now is that when you treat your local businesses crappy and new developers come in, if I'm a new developer and I'm a millionaire ready to come and develop in the city called Niagara Falls, I'm going to ask the local businesses that are already set up, how are you treated by your local government? How hard is it? Because what happens is, like, we have to, when someone wants to start a business, they have to go to tender. We need a one-stop shop, a place where we can, like let's say a one-stop shop created that can introduce new developers to, like, the economic development, community development, code enforcement, planning board, all of that. So we can have that unified voice instead of trying to send people through all of these different loops. Also, even with the trades, when someone's, you have the tradesmen, they need all kind of different types of licensing. It takes them forever to pay these guys out when it's time for payday. And it completely, like, deters or discourages people from even want to come here to do business. So that's when I say business friendly. It goes on, it's two different, like, phase or two different areas. You have to be friendly to your local businesses, who are really the bloodline of our city right now. and then be just as business friendly to those who are willing to come in and put money into the city. So that's why I say that the climate is not good when it comes down for businesses to be ran here, because our local government does make it stupid hard for them to actually start.
So let me follow up on that, because it certainly should be true that local businesses are the lifeline of the community. But then why would we give $8 million for 14 bartending jobs? Or I read that there was a brewery next to the press box, those vacant buildings, and it was under contract for 3 years and it fell apart. But it fell apart and it was a contractor from Buffalo. It wasn't a local. So
Right.
I don't know that we're speaking this, walking the walk, talking the talk of local business means anything to us. I don't see it.
But see, what it is that these are the decision makers, and
But you're
like,
going to be one.
right, and that's the thing about it. And I'll even go kind of piggyback off of what James had mentioned earlier. Some people are bought. Some people are like real talk. There is true corruption in local government, and that part has to be brought to the forefront. You can't have people in other people's pockets. The first thing that needs to happen is it needs to be for our city. The city's best interest at heart needs to be the first and foremost priority, and not special interest groups, not political favors and all of that other crap. What has to happen is we got to make sure that whatever decision that we make in local government, it has to be for the betterment of our community, our city as a whole.
Now, we've got 5 good guys, and I only say unfortunately because there's not much diversity. We've got 5 men, and they're good people. Why haven't they done this? I mean, why isn't that their priority? I mean, you've said the most logical thing I've ever heard, but it's not true right now.
Well, I'm gonna tell you honestly, and I've made this statement the last couple of meetings at City Hall, is that sometimes when things aren't really at your doorstep knocking at your door, when it's not at your foot, when it doesn't really affect you, when it doesn't affect your overhead, apathy sets in. You don't care. You're connected with someone, and whatever decisions you make, and that's neither. I won't make an assessment on any of those 5 guys that are there, because that would be unfair, because I don't really know. But my thing is I don't understand why that wouldn't be your first priority. I don't know. It has to be. It's something. I can't speak for them. All I know is that's what it needs to be. It should be.
Thank you. And thank you for the short notice there when we lost Colin, who I posed the question to. Thank you. James, what do you think? The business climate. What is business climate? And are we there, or do we have a long way to go?
This city goes out of its way to squash opportunity for businesses, especially homegrown small businesses. For example, we could talk all day about the hit job they're doing on short-term rentals right now, or we can look at Pine Avenue or Main Street development. Look, does it make sense that the city would bully its own planning department, causing them to all leave their jobs? These are the only people that are certified to approve development projects in our city during a time that we need them most. How does that help business? Does it make sense that we would have tax rates, like Dante was saying, they're so off standard that no business would want to come here to pay the extra amount? We got other cities who are offering like smart, balanced incentives to businesses for coming in. And, like I was talking about before, the nepotism and cronyism, they're rampant here. And people who aren't in those inner loops and those inner circles are left out to dry. And also I'm sorry, I'm going all over the map here, but our city doesn't embrace innovation. They don't embrace new technology, new ideas. They're kind of stuck in like a toxic mindset. There's so many things out there that we could be doing. Proven concepts like economic gardening that can be called on to develop plans for bringing in new businesses. The basic concept of which is stop concentrating on the one big corporate fish like Amazon, and start looking and encouraging 100 smaller fish to come swim in our pond.
Well, I hate to go back. I hate to go back to the same thing all the time, but $8 million is a heck of a lot of money. If you piled it
is.
up, we couldn't see each other, right? And if
Yeah.
that 8 million was spread around from people like Galen, who owns, a business, or the pizzeria or other places, that goes. I don't know if you could even spend 8 million. It's like the Ross Perot problem. Like, who would we give $8 million to?
No,
Who give it to
Galen's
one
I
preferred
gotta
developer?
say, Galen's a perfect example. Here's a guy who fought his butt off to have a bike rental place and down at the falls for tourists. And what does the city do? They turn around and they bring in Ready Bike. Now, Ready Bike is great. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but why not encourage the local guy who has already fought to be in that position? Maybe give him an opportunity for that. I don't know. I can't answer that. I just wanted to throw it out there because you had mentioned him before.
Well, we're such a small city that it's not even give him an opportunity. It's like pat him on the back and welcome him and say, do more, please. Like, you got a brain
That's
that
what I'm
does this.
saying.
Yeah, can you do more? Like, we know him. He's one of
Right.
us. Like, hug Tracy because do more of whatever you do well, Tracy, or Jim, like it's not that big a problem. But we give
Exactly.
$8 million, which is a lot to,
Yep.
I don't know.
We could have invested in a local person. We could have invested in Galen, and like I said, I'm just throwing that example out there because you mentioned it. But we could have invested some money in him, and now we have a local, homegrown success story instead of a project we can't even do on Main Street right now because the planning board doesn't exist right now. Or I'm sorry, not the planning board, the planning department. So
It doesn't pass any smell tests that you can make up. I just
Not at
don't.
all.
I don't know. Thank you, James. I'm sorry. Colin, are you with us? Are you back? Did you run off?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I was about to answer the question. All of a sudden, my internet completely crapped out. So now I'm on my phone. So I hope you can see me okay.
Dante answered it for you, so we're going to skip you and go to someone else. But no, we posed the whole question. I don't know if you remember it, but what is business climate? Do we have a bad one? Can we turn it around? I mean, what's that all about?
I feel like we have a very poor business climate here in Niagara Falls. If we didn't, we would have a lot more people clamoring to come here to open their small businesses. We have a beautiful waterfall and tourists that come here naturally without any help from us, really. We have vague and confusing regulations for businesses to come in. I think I popped in right as I heard James say something about the hit job that they're doing on small businesses such as short-term rentals. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement because we've had tourist homes here in Niagara Falls for 100 years. And now all of a sudden, they must be regulated. And that's the only thing that needs to be regulated, right? With any sort of vigor. We give all of our incentives to large corporations, right? We don't give any incentives to small business owners. I can only I can speak for myself, where when I started my business, it was literally all of my own money. Like there was no grant money or, tax abatement or like, hell, I don't even get an extra garbage tote. So yeah, all of our incentives go to large corporations, right? Hotels get like a 15-year tax abatement from the county. That doesn't help us. So making and creating better and easier pathways for small businesses who have all the skin in the game to come in, spend their money, and build, would also help to create a more diverse and more fun environment, in my opinion. If we had lots of small businesses down 3rd Street, Main Street, right? All the things. Did anyone talk about Main Street or is it?
We just talked
No?
about you the whole time.
Where'd she go? So, with
No,
Main
we didn't
Street,
get,
I've
we didn't
heard
get to Main Street. No, we didn't. No.
We didn't talk about it? Okay, I'd like to talk about it. So Main Street, I've heard several times, even in this week, that we're waiting for funding to gel. And again, speaking as a business owner, funding doesn't like gel. Like you either have funding or you don't have funding, right? Like it doesn't just, you either have a mortgage or you don't have a house, or, you can't, right, you can't move forward. So my stance on it being a poor business climate is it's way too hard to start a business here. it's way too hard to continue to have a business here because, you know, we're giving all of our incentives to, you know, preferred developers who are, you know, as someone mentioned earlier, are creating 14 minimum wage jobs. I mean, and listen, I like new buildings and stuff, and I like staircases, but really we need to focus on things that are going to pay back into the city and not, you know, just give tax breaks. And
And do you think as a city council person that role of the city council person can affect that? You can turn the corner on the bad climate, like it's a cultural thing. Dante alluded to the culture. Can a city council person do that?
Yes, I would say absolutely. So we are allowed to, you know, discuss with department heads how things are going and why they're going in that direction. So I would really like to, you know, hear more about the deliverables on these different departments, right? So if this is what the apartment is doing, I don't want to throw code, you know, totally under the bus, but if code says that we're focusing, you know, on, you know, fixing, you know, blighted housing, right? So I would like a meeting in the next 3 months. Okay, where did you start? What did you do? Where are we at now? Are we better? Are we worse? Yeah, I don't feel like things like
cut the lawn. I can't get away from that.
that's it. You know, the little things, like we are the death of 1,000 cuts here in this city. It's not any one cut that bled us to death. It's the 1,000. So
if you open up a nice restaurant across the street from that waist-high grass, you don't know what's living in that waist-high grass. So your customer leaves the restaurant and sees a rat run across the grass, kind of kills your business.
I'm not going to open my business across the street from that lawn.
Right, because you're smarter than that. And so smarter people aren't going to do it.
An investor, I go where it's smart. It's what I do. And if it's not smart to spend your money here, I'm flying the coop just like the rest of them. Yeah. So we have to make it easier and better. And we have to actually give some real incentive for people to come here and spend their money here and invest here and be part of our community.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad you came back. Thank you.
Sorry.
And I'm sorry we're getting in a little bit of speed dating now because I could talk to you guys all night. But David, same question. I mean, is it poor business climate? You're a business owner as well. You know, business is dying to come to you. Right. But, you know, did you find, I mean, you've got a long-term family business in the city. You know, is it better? Was it better in the 50s? Is it better today? You're, you know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. I'll say guilty by association. It's my brothers and my mom that own the family business. Obviously, I've been born and raised on it, like I said before. I mean, growing up and seeing now what my brothers have to do, you know, to make ends meet or pay bills or anything like that, I would definitely say it's harder. So I would say like the business climate has been a compounding issue over the last several years. You know, and I think people have touched on it already. You know, it's taxes. We have a two-tier tax system in the city, homestead versus non-homestead, and the non-homestead is double of what a homeowner is paying. So how do you incentivize a new company to come here when they're going to first thing to look at is taxes and say, I'm not coming there. I mean, why would they when they can go somewhere else, a neighboring city, town, village, and not have to pay that? So, you know, I think it is about getting the right, I think Dante touched on it, getting the people with the right intentions of why they're in this race, not ones that are bought and paid for, not ones that have hidden agendas, to come into office January 1st and get ready to work for, you know, the citizens of the city. Because, you know, electing the same old, or people that have those hidden agendas that you don't find out until they're in office, that's what's gotten us where we are today. And if that's the case, the business climate is just going to stay the exact same way it is. And Niagara Falls is never going to be, you know, the place that I believe we all want it to see it be.
Well, thank you for running for office again, but how are you not so mad, baseball bat in your hand mad, down to, you know, the place where they give a pilot for 14 years, they're going to pay 25% of the local tax. You're paying 100. You've been in business for whatever, 10 million years. You're paying 100%, and the preferred developer is going to pay 25% of what you pay for 14 years. How are you not more mad? I'm madder than you are. I don't mean that. Maybe you just control it better, you know.
No, I'm sure my brothers are plenty mad at it. Like I said, outside of, you know, maybe some day-to-day things that I see and talk with them about, I'm not too in tune with the business. Again, I know that they have done very well, taking over. My dad passed away in 2009 to keep it afloat and being the third generation of ownership. I'm sure that they would like to see some, investment from the city. But, since I've been involved in politics, they do enough of reading themselves. They know the city doesn't have the money to offer them anything in regards to that.
Why don't the city have the money to offer something? Why? I don't get that. You have all the money in the world.
Right. Well,
You're
like
the
I said,
richest city in all of New York State.
like I said, I wish we still had some of that 250 million laying around to maybe have some investment, not just in our business, and businesses across the city. I mean, yes, we have been in business for about 73 years, but I mean, there's other businesses that have been in business that long here, or ones that are creeping up on that age, or even new businesses. I mean, it's all about local businesses and the communities that they support. And I'm jaded because I was, born and raised off family business, but I have to believe I've heard other candidates say that as well, that it has some merit to it.
Yeah. David, thank you so much. Let's go to Jim real quick and then Tracy. And then what we'll do is, again, I apologize. It takes so long to get the wheel around each person. After this question, why don't we go around, everybody take a minute or two to say your piece, and we'll leave for the night, if you don't mind. So anyway, Jim, business climate.
Okay, yeah, I'll make this real quick. From about 1980 to about 1995, I had a small business we ran here in the city. And I had all kinds of help from the state or from the county, and they had set up for small businesses to assist you in running a business. It was through the community college, and then they had moved it to Trot Access Center. And, they did away with all of that in the late 90s. I still remember the agent that helped me. His name was Howard Scott. And, they worked with us and they got us grants and they helped us find people to employ and to train them. And they did a great job. All that stuff went away. And I don't know what happened, why, but I don't see the same climate now today in this city to help out. I mean, they'll help you find people to hire, but as far as startup and all that stuff, I know they have people that will help you write a startup plan, but they won't hold your hand and walk through the process with you. So as far as, what to do about it, I know what it looks like. And I think what we need to do is put our heads together and develop something. Private industry is the key to growth in the city. I don't believe that I don't believe that the government is going to find a way out by itself. Private investment is what's going to do it. So.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Tracy, you wrap up the whole concept of a poor business climate. Good luck.
You got it. I don't know how much more I can add to what's already been said. And I do not own a business in the city, but I've been learning recently about the homestead. I think we all know about the homestead and the non-homestead tax and the unattractive rates that the non-homestead tax offers to business owners. And that's something that is going to need attention, but it's also a bit of a controversial topic as to how do you address that, right? And how do you start to bring one down and more in line with the homestead, the non-homestead in line with the homestead rates. Our city, in my research, I have learned that in New York State, we have one of the highest tax rates. So that's something that's just going to have to be addressed. And like I said, I think the tactics to do that are going to be somewhat controversial for a controversial topic. So, but I've also, in listening to everybody, and this is something I'd like to learn a little bit more about in my questions as I'm out talking to business owners and residents in our city, is I'm almost hearing too, we have some policy issues, operational issues that we need to streamline in order to make it easier. Jim, I think you talked about this, and this is something that I actually written down, and I was hoping we'd have an opportunity to talk about today. But As a woman, and I would love to see more minority and women-owned businesses here in Niagara Falls. I do think the key lies in private industry. I think waiting for that one big thing to fix our city is we have to sail past that, and we have to immerse ourselves into offering incentives and things and of that nature to minorities and women-owned businesses, and diversify the cultural makeup of who our business owners are in the city. That's what I want to learn more about, and that's where I'd like to put my energies, moving forward.
Great. Tracy, thank you so much. Can you start us off with the, just a 1 minute, exit of your campaign and till we meet again?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one thing that, we didn't talk a lot about today. And when we talk about, since this topic is financial, all about financial responsibility and fiscal responsibility, and that is, certainly the responsibility of our current council and us as candidates, and any one of us who are elected into the city council. So I really think this was a perfect topic for today to kick off these discussions. And I will say, one of the things that we have to focus on and put more energies into is developing a residential renewal plan that's going to bring more young families, younger people, younger demographic back to our city, whether they've gone to school here, whether they've had family here, or whether they've moved here from just because they've heard Niagara Falls is a great place to invest. And I think we have to invest more into offering resources into neighborhoods for developing those. And there's a lot of benefit to doing that as our city's maturing, and by bringing in a younger demographic. This demographic is one that's going to be much more open to, and I think it was James who talked about this earlier, but much more open to technology, much more open to taking on risk of owning businesses in our city. They're going to be more open to cultural diversity and to making and demanding equality and equity and inclusion of all different types of lifestyles and makeups of our neighborhoods. And I think we need more of that. That's what I believe is going to be part of the key to rejuvenating Niagara Falls, setting a path for this city to not just for today, but for into the future. And we have to start investing into bringing that younger demographic back. So I'll leave it at that and let the others have a chance.
Whenever we're at an event, my wife and I, it takes her 45 minutes to say goodbye. I say goodbye and I'm out the door. So that was a longer wrap up than a wrap up. But it's
sorry about that. It's it's the Italian goodbye. You know how that goes here in the city of Niagara Falls here.
I'm not picking on you. I'm not listening to you. So it's only a compliment. So thank you. And thank you for doing this. Colin, you're next. Goodbye. No, but she froze again. I go to Colin and she freezes. Colin, can you hear me? Oh my gosh, no. Colin.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah, let me come back to you in a minute.
No,
maybe it'll
can you
clear
hear
up.
me?
I can kind of hear you.
Hello?
Well, pause for a minute, Colin. David, what till we see you next time? Thank you. What do you got in the closing?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, thank everyone here that was able to join us tonight. Mr. Christie, thank you. Thank Mr. Pascal for that wonderful introduction today. Very professional, like you said. And I just wanted to leave us with one thing, again, touching on the meeting that was from last Thursday. At the end, I believe it was live streamed. At the end, I'm not sure if it was caught. Mr. Spanbauer had quoted an article that was published on March 23rd of 2021, and it was regarding the American Rescue Plan money. But I think it's very pertinent, especially for us in the Falls, not just for American Rescue Plan money, but for future casino revenues that we're going to get, hopefully get. And the quote was, "The stakes are high. The money needs to move fast and be deployed smartly and equitably. In 10 years, we may look back at this time and ask, which places merely spent their money and which places invested?" I want to leave us with that.
All right. Thank you, David. Colin, you're stable, I think.
I'm not moving. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. Do you have a minute to wrap up?
I'm sorry, Spectrum has monopoly on our town as well. Thank you for having another forum. I think it was informational and I appreciated hearing everyone's point of view. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And I see that my face is frozen, but I'm hoping that you can hear me. And thank you very much. And we will see you next forum.
Thank you, Colin, and thanks for doing this. Jim, thank you for doing this.
I appreciate the opportunity. And, you know, I'd like to say that with each of these forums, it is a good exchange of information among us all. And, you know, although we have opinions, the sharing is learning. And like you always say, you know, all of us is smarter than one of us. So I look forward to the next one. You know, we'll
I
see
love
how-
that. Sucks up at the same time he speaks the truth. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Dante, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. One of my main things I like to say is the people in power will never outweigh the power of people. I do believe that people being more engaged into these spaces will help us as well. I became wise when I realized I didn't have all the answers. I think for me, this is something I hope everybody pay attention to. One of the things that I can appreciate about COVID and this whole pandemic is that it forced everyone to get out of their comfort zone, including myself. And so hopefully we take that, what COVID has done in that area, and run with it and stop being comfortable. Because in order for us to get out of this financial tragedy that we're in, it's going to be uncomfortable. And we're going to have to, you know, make those decisions that are uncomfortable. So again, thank you again. I definitely appreciate the time and look forward to the next forum.
All right. Thank you, James. Wrap up. Is voteabundanza.com. Do you have any website we could go to?
I just want to say, you know, as candidates, you know, we're under a lot of pressure to have all the answers, know everything. You know, it's good to ask for help. It's good to not know. It's good to learn. I'm glad that we're having these discussions. So with that, I'll just say, you know, thank you to everybody involved and goodbye. Till next time.
And I'll wrap it up. I'll say, you know, we don't really have a rating system, but I'll have one. There can be only one best comment of the night. Everybody had great comments, but to me, the three that stood out were, it's not rocket science. We have a cultural problem beyond repair, and it's going to take all of us because we have 45,000 different agendas in the city. We truly do. I know this from asking people, what would you like to do? 45,000 different answers. Well, do you want to work on this? No, I'm working on something else. So those three things, we have too many different agendas, and I don't know how we're all going to get on the same page. It's a big cultural hurdle that we have. I don't know how these aren't solvable problems. I mean, nobody else is solving these either, but we have to. So anyway, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Have a good one.
See ya.